Welcome to GRN, the Growth and Resilience Network, where every episode brings you targeted stories and strategies about professional and personal growth and resilience. GRN's mission is to educate, energize, and equip you with information and hopefully a bit of wisdom to apply in your life and within your community. Hi, I'm Steve Piscitelli, and I'm your host. Today, GRN breaks new ground as we have taken our first road trip to bring you the powerful story of an organization whose mission is to serve and advocate for an underserved population in North Central Florida. That's right, we've traveled from the GRN World Headquarters in Atlantic Beach, Florida, to the beautiful community of Gainesville, Florida, to have a conversation with representatives of the Arks of Alachua County. Before I forget, let me give you their website so that you can read more about what they do. And it's at www.arkalachua.org. I'll spell that ARCALACHUA.org. I'll also post that link in my platforms for this podcast. The ARC has two basic functions. First and foremost, they are a direct service provider in Alachua County, Florida, to almost 300 adults and children whose needs range from intellectual disabilities, spina bifida, autism, cerebral palsy, and Prader-Willi Syndrome. The ARC's other main function is to serve as an advocate for all persons with developmental disabilities, regardless of where they may live or who may provide support to them. And today we're going to be speaking specifically about Prader-Willi Syndrome. PWS is what you'll hear us refer to. And to help us understand PWS, we have three guests for our conversation. First, we have Mr. Steve Drago, who is our executive director here at the Arks of Alachua County.
Glad to be here.
And we're glad to have you, Steve. We have Ms. Elmer Underwood, a group home manager who works directly with PWS clients.
Thank you for having me.
And she's got a beautiful singing voice. I don't know, maybe later we'll hear something from her. And then we have Miss Adele, an ARC client and a board member who has PWS. Glad you're with us, Adele.
Thanks, I'm glad to be here too.
Okay, very good. So let's start, if we can. First, I think congratulations are in order. If I got it right, Arks of Alachua County is celebrating its 50th year of serving people with developmental and intellectual disabilities in your community. Is that correct?
That is exactly correct. Founded by a group of parents back in 1966, and if I do the math right, that's 50 years.
And Steve, how long have you been with ARC?
It'll be 30 years in July.
Wow, okay. And we'll hear more about what you're doing in a little bit. You know, when I looked at your annual report, I read these words: celebrating ability, creating opportunity. So Steve, we'll start with you. Tell us how the ARC does that. You know, in short, what's your story?
I think the first thing that we do extremely well is we listen. So we ask questions and we listen. And so you have to really know what somebody wants out of life before you can work towards getting it for them. So once you've determined and listened, then you got to be creative and find some ways to provide them with the structure and supports to achieve the things they want to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is so critical. So many people want to tell us before
Very
we get,
true.
Yeah. So it's the questioning is so important.
It is, and it's the basic philosophy is just to listen, to question, and then to go from there. And sometimes that takes creativity.
Yeah, it does. Elmer.
Yes.
How long have you been with the ARC?
I've been here 14 years, almost 15.
Okay. This kind of piggybacking off of what Steve had just said. How does the ARC celebrate ability? How does it create opportunity? Take one of those.
Well, what we do, we based on with working with each individual. Every individual are not the same. So you take instant, like for Adele, and then you take the of another client. You kind of work on different levels. every PWS is not the same. Maybe the eating disorderly, but everyone is not the same. So you work with on an implementation plan, trying to see where the different skills are.
I got you.
So everyone is not the same as just because of their PWS.
So there's some sort of an assessment plan that you're doing with folks, an intake, and you where are they in
Yes,
their
sir.
story and their journey?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got you. And how do you convey the Arks story? Because obviously there must be, the term usually is stakeholders, people that you want to buy into the mission of ARK.
It's every person here's job. So we start from the very first day that somebody comes into a training class, and we teach them how to advocate. And no matter where you are, you're representing the ARK. So whether it's taking people to the mall or, just working when you're cleaning a bathroom, the advocacy never stops. So you just have to work with folks and get them to understand the mission, and then to carry it out there.
You have to compete for resources, and one of those resources obviously is dollars. How do you remain relevant in that kind of a market where you have to constantly compete, whether it's with the state legislature, whether it's with somebody in line at the grocery store? How do you do that?
I mean, and that's the real battle, that's exactly where the challenge comes, because you don't ever want to go out there and say, hey, my mission's more important than yours. It's more important to have people with intellectual disabilities cared for than it is to educate children. You can't argue and try to really compete on that level. You just have to get your message out there. You have to make it personal, and you have to show folks, what it really means to have an intellectual and developmental disability.
And that, I'm assuming that's where someone like Adele, who has PWS and also is a board member now. So that story itself can be very powerful. Would you say, Adele, that
Yes.
just being able to share your personal journey is one way to keep the story relevant?
Right.
Right. Okay.
Adele's a little humble, but let me tell you, she came to us, with some really serious health conditions, really caused by her syndrome. And when she first came here, she really committed to wanting to get better and to want to improve and to want to have more independence in her life. And she's done every bit of that. She's come from having a severe weight problem, type 2 diabetes, I don't want to talk out of school, but, a lot of things that you've overcome. And it's really, I know she's proud of herself. I know her family's proud of her, but it's really a cool story.
Well, we're going to get to the PWS in probably 90 seconds. But Steve, if you would, what else? I mentioned briefly in my introduction, but what other populations are you serving besides the PWS here at the ARK?
We really serve anyone with an intellectual and developmental disability, and a lot of times you don't even know where the cause came from, but Prader-Willi Syndrome, autism, spina bifida, cerebral palsy, a lot of those kind of outcomes we deal with every day.
And PWS, educate us. I'm going to let you folks just jump in, whoever wants to. In fact, all of you, and I would assume, Adele, you are the closest to this. What is PWS? Because I'm assuming that most of the people listening to this podcast have never heard of it, and at least as far as they know, have not encountered or engaged with a person with PWS. So what is it?
Yeah, let me kick it off a little bit on the science part, and they can add a little bit more on the specialties. But it's a genetic disorder, 15th chromosome, and at birth, it's really kind of typified by a failure to thrive, and because of that failure to thrive, the doctors and the geneticists have done a really good job lately of being able to identify people who have it. Some early intervention and some things like that, some growth hormone, have done a lot to go towards treatment, but it still leaves the folks with a lifetime of challenges with never feeling full. And that's probably the main thing. Constant hunger, an inability to satiate, causes some weight problems, and and that's the lifetime challenge that these folks have to live with. When it goes unchecked, it's not uncommon for us to admit somebody who weighs 500 to 600 pounds.
And this is from birth.
From birth, yeah. 1 in 15,000 live births is kind of the how often it occurs.
Adele, as somebody with PWS, what would you say if you had to identify 3 big challenges? What have been the biggest challenges for you on your journey to cope with, deal with, thrive with PWS?
My biggest challenge is trying to control my eating habits and trying to control my weight gaining. ARC has been very helpful. I've been learning a lot more stuff here, and I have my weight gain under control.
You have it under control.
Yes.
Now, is that something that you're going to have to work with for the rest of your life?
Yes.
Yes. And working with counselors on that?
Yes.
Yes, and that's been helpful.
Yes.
Here at the Ark.
Yes.
Okay. What would you say when you look at the challenges for a PWS client? What are the challenges for the family?
The challenge of the family is that you have to maintain weight and the environment as well. Yeah.
Do you do counseling or any kind of services for family members of PWS?
A lot of that's done through the support groups, Prader-Willi Syndrome USA, Prader-Willi Syndrome Florida. There's a lot of parent support organizations, and there's really no support like somebody else who's living the same thing you are. So I think working with the other families, working with the other parents, they all have to lock their refrigerators. They all have to lock their
Really?
cabinets.
I mean, physically?
Yeah.
Padlock.
Padlocks on the refrigerators, padlocks on the cabinets. Sometimes that's not even enough. We have, a lot of the PWS clients will sneak out the window or elope or go out the doors. They have to get the food. It's such a driving kind of force. So, and there's nobody that can really identify like another family can.
Right. Wow. And Elmer, you're working with these folks on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the challenge from your perspective.
Well, my challenge is that let me explain something, because there's a different department where you have the residential home, and where I work at is over at personal support. And personal support is a little bit step up from you. When you move from the group home, then you move just a little higher step up, which is a little bit more independent, which is where Dale lives at. And you still have to be monitored.
Right.
Dale them get the opportunity of going out, going to the grocery store, figuring out with the calorie sheets and everything. But it's still a challenging. And what the challenge is that sometimes them will feel that if they can have this or if they can have that. And that's the biggest challenge in what they can have and what they can have. It's kind of like a nutrition. And it's all right now, can they have like hamburger after hamburger after hamburger? That can be like a challenge for them. Well, why can't I have this? Why can't I have that? They also see the genetic doctor, which is the doctor up under Dr. Dan Driscoll. And that's how, with the challenging too, with Dr. Driscoll is the one that provide with the with our nutrition. So it's always going to be a challenge every single day. We never know how that challenge is going to face until we come upon with that challenge.
What do you see as in your years of working with PWS? What's a bright spot? What's one of those things that that makes you put your feet on the floor in the morning and you say, I can't wait to get there and work with the Adeles of the world? What is it about working with? Because it sounds like it's very demanding, very challenging.
Just being a family, being supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Being supportive, because I want to be able to go into their hearts and stuff like that. And that's my brightest spot by working with people with with the PWS program, so they can be able to come to me that, okay, all right, where a job has been done. And that's the biggest, brightest spot of helping someone, because you never know that Adele can help somebody else. just like I can be able to help somebody else. And that is the biggest, brightest spot that anybody
Right.
can have.
Or even Adele, especially Adele, I would think,
Yeah.
you could be the biggest role model for somebody with PWS.
Absolutely.
Do you, Adele, work with PWS clients or other folks with PWS?
Yes, I do. I live with 2 roommates.
Ah, okay.
They also have PWS, and I got family as well at the apartments. If they have PWS.
Now, when you're living this way, and I'm seeing this image of a padlocked refrigerator. So if you have 3 PWS clients living together, is the refrigerator padlocked?
No, we have alarms on the apartments. We have alarms, so the alarm will go off to let somebody know that we're in the kitchen.
Oh, wow. Okay. Steve.
That's really a result of her having graduated from programs that were much more restrictive.
Right.
So when Adele first got here, the places that she lived had the locked facilities and had the locked kitchens, had the locked cabinets, had the locked refrigerators, all of that. You know, as she's shown ability, you know, she's been able to graduate, so to speak, and to move on, you know, to less restrictive kinds of things. And it's really admirable, you know. I mean, and it's the kind of thing that keeps us going, you know, because we know what life was like when she first got here, and we know what life was like before she got here, and now we see her now, and that's what kind of keeps you going.
It sounds like, and please correct me if I am not speaking correctly here. It sounds like it's continual behavior modification that you have to work with. Is that accurate?
It is. It's a behavior analysis, and it's not anything fancy, you know. I mean, when we first started working, we had one person with Prader-Willi Syndrome who came into one of our group homes. We had never heard of it before. You know, this is 25 years ago. We did some research, and we started to read about it, and you know, we realized that the life expectancy was right around 20. You know, and we're like, well, wait a minute, you know, she's 19. We would really like her to be around a little while. She's really got a great personality, sweet person. You know, we need to do better. And so we kind of sat down and designed a program that really helped folks, you know, help themselves.
Is that still an accurate statistic, the life expectancy?
No, not anymore.
Okay.
Not anymore. As people have looked at what we've done, there's national conferences. We present at those conferences. Other folks are doing similar things in other parts of the country, and it's really turned around right now with early intervention and with, you know, constant, you know, good support structure, behavior analysis. The life expectancy is not any different, you know, than it is for you or I.
Ah, okay.
But you got to keep the weight under control.
Right. It sounds like, as you're talking, that the Ark of Alachua County has been basically you've set the benchmarks in this area for Prader-Willi. Am I stretching that a bit, or what?
We were one of the first, you know, to do it this way, and I think when we first started working, the basic philosophy was, you know, don't let any of these folks ever be around food. Don't talk about food. Don't you whisk the food in at dinner and you whisk it out. Our approach was really trying to involve folks in the day-to-day decision making, in the day-to-day control, and to teach them as we went along. So it takes a couple of years to get off, you know, 300 or 400 pounds. During that time, you can be working on things. You can be educating folks, and we use that time to teach them the skills that they're going to need, you know, to do the things. And we were one of the first to do that.
Right. Adele, how long have you been associated with the Ark of Alachua County?
I've been here since July of 2005.
Okay, so a decade plus. And I have to, as I'm looking across the table at you, you don't appear to be 300 pounds.
No.
You appear to be in great shape.
Yes.
Is that a result of the Ark?
Yes.
Yes, and the behavior modification and the counseling and the programming that Steve and Elmer have talked about.
Yes.
Yes, great support. And Steve, there was something you mentioned earlier about the 15th chromosome and the failure to thrive. Yeah, when we talk about resilience and its ability to thrive and adapt to circumstances that sometimes throw us back, stumbling blocks, besides the food, which obviously is the big issue here, what else does the ARC do, whether it's for PWS clients or any of your other clients, to help build resilience, to help them adapt on a day-to-day basis? So it's not only that when something negative happens and throws them back, adversity, that they're able to adapt along the way.
It's kind of, I think it's a little different than the way you described it, because they come to us resilient. You know, they already come to us with that built-in resilience. If we're not so ignorant that we ignore it, you know, I mean, if we basically just open our eyes and pay attention, you can't help but be inspired by that resilience. You know, some of these folks have been resilient because they had to basically be fed with an eyedropper when they were children, and the parents battled and struggled to keep them alive until the point where they were walking, and then they started eating everything in sight, you know. And so, I mean, families have been through so much. These guys have been through so much. If we just sit back and take a look at that, and from that take the inspiration, the resilience will continue. We just have to create an opportunity for them to express it. So they can be just as resilient when it comes to getting a job in the community. Adele's now working. She's got a job out in the community. They can be just as resilient when it comes to learning to control, as much as they're capable, you know, the food and the drive for food. So.
And that's powerful. It ties into something else you said about listening, observing, paying attention. So these clients are coming in, your clients are coming in, they have already developed a mechanism to cope, to thrive. And you're saying, rather than give them, here's what we think you should do, you kind of get out of the way.
Just pay attention and pave the way, kind of basically. Get obstacles out of the way. There'll be obstacles that the community will throw. There'll be obstacles that, you know, that will come up. And through our advocacy, through our listening, through paying attention, we help them overcome the newest obstacles.
Absolutely. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
You see that also with the day-to-day.
Yes.
They come in strong.
Yes, they do. And then when you talk about counseling, we also have what we call our behavior analysts. That help out with Adele and our other clients too. They maintaining with their exercise too, and they also provide with a plan, a behavior plan, to help Adele them to maintain in with their weight what they come up with exercising every day, whether it's a treadmill or they walk, or particular what type of exercise and stuff that they're going to do. So that also helps them with their maintaining their weight also.
Sure. It's powerful. Directed to Steve and to Elmer. We talked about resilience, and you say you pay attention to what your clients are bringing in. How do you go about maintaining your resilience? How do you stay in that healthy, well-being mindset? Because I would have to assume that at times, the burden becomes, whether for you, Steve, it's leading this facility, getting the resources, the money. For you, dealing with the clients, Elmer, every day, the bright spots and the not so bright spots. So what do you do for yourselves and for is there a formal program here at the ARC for your colleagues? How do you stay resilient? How do you stay healthy?
Well, I guess I can talk about myself personally, but I spend so much time looking at numbers, talking, going out and advocating for the program, or building, some kind of approach, basically by legislatures to be aware of the things that we do. So you try to build all of that stuff, and you spend all day on the phone, and you spend all day on the computer, and you spend all day looking at numbers and talking to accountants. And for me, it's just a matter of getting back to the basics. So I go out and I go sit in the back for an hour or so, and just remember why I'm here.
Right.
And every day there's somebody who I'll see, whether it's Elmer. I've never seen her in 15 years, maybe once, without a smile. It doesn't matter what she's dealt with that day. She carries the smile. Or it's Adele coming back and tell me how she got a raise at her job. You go back there and you kind of ground yourself in why you got into this in the first place, and that's what keeps me going. That and weekend at the beach every now and then.
Yeah. Toes in the sand.
Okay. Well, with me, I love my job, and this is what I do, and I just feel like working with Adele them just builds a life around me. I do try to stay healthy and follow the guidelines. They are my biggest motivation. Pretty much like Steve was saying, it's all right now. Doing paperwork, trying to make sure that everything else is done, because I gotta make sure that everything is done, because if I don't make sure that it's not done, then I got somebody else behind on my back because I'm making sure that it's not done.
Yeah.
So we gotta follow the proper protocol of what things need to be done, and it's because of the love of them that keeps me going.
Yeah. As you said, you remember why you're doing it. It keeps you grounded. And when you get the success stories of I just got a raise, that's powerful. That's very powerful. Congratulations, by the way, Adele, on that. That's great. All right, before we close it, I'm going to go around the table, and I'll start with Adele. If there is anything that I didn't give you a chance to speak to, or something that we did talk about that you want to come back to, and make sure the listeners leave with whatever it is there anything else that you would like to say, either about PWS, about organizations and entities like the Ark of Alachua County, about the people you work with? Adele, is there anything that you'd like to tell the listeners that you haven't had a chance to?
We are also with PWS. We have a tendency to have pain. Like if we hurt or something, we have we're always in constant pain. And also, ARC is the best place to be.
ARC.
Didn't hear to say that.
The best place to be.
Yes.
Elmer, anything that you'd like to leave the listeners with that we didn't touch on?
Just be supportive of what we do. Don't take nothing for granted. Every day is a life. Just, whatever, all the things that Steve has said, make sure that you look out, watch out, seek and learn from all the, everything that you have heard.
The seek and learn again. I'm hearing the listen, observe. Yes. Steve.
40 years ago, when I first met somebody with an intellectual and developmental disability, my life was changed, immediately. I mean, I said, well, this is just fantastic. I love the people. I love the resilience. I love, the effort. I just want to make sure that listeners out there have that opportunity too. So if you find somebody in a grocery store, if you have a group home that wants to move next door to you, if you're walking out in the community and you see somebody who looks a little different and may have an intellectual and developmental disability, take a minute, get to know them, because it'll make your life better. It'll improve the quality, of your day-to-day life. And I don't know, I can't explain it in words as much as I just ask you to take the time to get to know somebody with an intellectual and developmental disability. My kids were raised here at the Ark. They're both in their 30s now, or 20s. I'm sorry, children. Both in their 20s, no 30s yet, I promise. So and they're different because they were raised here. They came here when they were children. They were raised here when they were teenagers. Elmer worked with them over in our early intervention center. They used to go over there every day and help and volunteer, and they're different people because of that experience. And I think everybody should have that experience. So welcome somebody. Get to meet them. Ask them a question.
And I love that, because obviously you could always use financial support. That's critical. You're going deeper than that. And what we can do on an individual level, even if we're not associated with a great organization like the Ark of Alachua County. And so I'm going to leave the listeners with a little call to action. I'd like to do that. That's the old teacher in me. It's your homework, for the folks listening. And I've taken some notes as Steve and Adele and Elmer have been talking. And I would say the challenge is this, to be a little curious when you walk around your community today. Look at your community with new eyes. Observe maybe something you have never seen before. Start asking questions. Steve had said something about you might see someone who appears to be different. Rather than shying away from it, is there a conversation, or is it, can you just say, hi, how are you? Have a nice day. It is somebody in your community, and it really does take the whole community to build the community. And this thing that I keep coming back to that Steve said at the opening, listen. It seems like we're in the season right now of a lot of people telling us stuff. Can we listen, observe, see what's out there? These three folks here in front of me today around this table, Steve, Adele, and Elmer, are doing just that on a day-to-day basis. They're involved in decision making. We can be too on an individual basis. And go to their site again, the alachua.org, and see what you can do for organizations like ARC. It could be volunteering for them. It could be donating. You might even find a career in this. You just never know, like Elmer did. Now, I'm going to actually finish with something that you didn't even know I was going to ask. It's what I call a lightning round. And you can pass if you want, but I've got a few questions here for you. I'm going to start off with Steve.
Uh-oh.
What's your favorite word?
Love.
Love. Elmer.
Mine too. Love.
Okay. Adele, your favorite word?
Love and family.
Okay, and family. What is your least favorite word?
Hate.
Hate. Elmer?
Can't do.
Can't do. All right.
I like yours.
Yeah.
Want.
What was that again?
Want.
Want. Elmer, if you were a morning breakfast food, what would you be?
Grits.
Is that cheese grits or?
Cheese grits.
Cheese grits, okay. Steve?
You know, I have no idea why, but the first thing that came to my mind was bacon.
Adele, morning breakfast food.
Pancake.
Pancakes, okay. And the last one of the lightning round. If you were a weather forecast, what would yours be?
Sunny.
Sunny.
Thunder.
Thunder.
Wind.
Wind. All right, folks. Thank you again, Steve, Elmer, Adele. Again, to get more information about what the Ark of Alachua does, go to www.arkalachua.org. And again, I'll post that on the podcast platform. So I want to thank the listeners as well for joining us. Without you, there's no Growth and Resilience Network. I thank you for sharing our podcasts with your family, your friends, your colleagues, and your community leaders. Maybe there are some leaders in your community you'd like to talk to about folks with intellectual disabilities, developmental disabilities, and who knows, maybe the Ark of Alachua could serve as a bit of a benchmark for you folks. Visit my website, stevepiscitelli.com, for more information about upcoming conversations on the GRN and about programs and other resources that I have for your personal growth and resilience. You can also sign up for my email and newsletter mailing list. I promise never to spam you, though, if you do sign up. So until we meet again, either virtually or somewhere in person around this great nation, this is Steve Piscitelli on the road today in Gainesville, Florida, reminding all of us to choose well, live well, and be well. Bye-bye, folks.